Speak on this show, episode 12 in the year 2022. Y'all ready? It's Saturday morning, y'all. Let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Speak on the show. I'm your boy, R.W. Coolins. First and foremost, giving honor to the God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. I appreciate everybody checking in on me last week. I took a week off, took a mental health break. I appreciate everybody checking in, text messages, phone calls, however you reached out to me. I appreciate that. Needed that break. Let's get these formalities out the way. R.W. Coolins, that's the website. You can go there. All over all social media platforms, R.W. Coolins. We're also broadcasting live on YouTube and Facebook this morning, every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. Trying to get my bearings. 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. Broadcast live on Facebook and YouTube. Go subscribe to the YouTube page. Also, after the show, you can download on Spreaker.com as well as Apple iTunes. On Apple iTunes, it is under Speak on this show. So go there, download, listen to the audio after the show, if that's what you choose to do. 844-904-2665, 844-904-2665. That's the call-in number. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. All we ask is to do is say what you mean and mean what you say. Here on the show, I'm having problems with my headphones, y'all. On the show, we come in as friends, we leave as friends. All we ask is if you got something to say, that's what we do. Say what you mean what you say. Brian Hoodie, good morning, sir. Good morning. Appreciate the support, bro. Appreciate the support. Let's see where we at here. Where we at? Well, it's Unscripted Saturday, y'all. It's Unscripted. It's Unscripted Saturday. And I got a couple things that we're going to talk about, some things we're going to get into. And then at the end, I got something I want to really touch on before we get into the mind, body, and soul. But let's go ahead and jump into this thing. So I got an update for y'all. We talked about Mason, Tennessee, and this was not too long ago. Something wrong with my headphones, y'all. Not too long ago, Mason, Tennessee. That's where they're building this Ford plant for $5.6 billion Ford factory to employ 5,600 workers, and construction will employ thousands of jobs. They'll create jobs and everything. There's this little town called Mason, Tennessee. Tennessee comptroller is trying to take over the business of the city because they said they haven't been paying their bills and all this kind of stuff, but they've never been involved in what's going on in Mason, Tennessee. Make a long story short, it went to court because they were trying to take over, and the judge declined to halt the state comptroller from taking over the majority Black towns' finances. So that's where we're at now. But it's one of those things that I want to give you an update because, as we talked about before, see, these small towns where nobody really cares about, once you get something coming in that's going to increase the monetary value of the community surrounding that area, now people want to be involved. So the judge declined it. Looks like Mason, Tennessee is probably going to be taken over by the Tennessee comptroller as far as the finances and everything, which means most of the money that's going to be made from this $5.6 billion Ford factory being put in that location, they will probably never see within the city. Just bring that up. Also, you know, this is going to be a politically speaking, and I got some things I want to get into, but I seen something on the news that really jumped out at me this week, dealing with this previous administration, some of the people in the previous administration. You know, we still got the insurrection investigation, January 6th committees going on, a lot of subpoenas, a lot of people going to talk, and different things like that. A lot of things coming out as we go along. James Battle, good morning, my brother. Good morning. A lot of things coming out, but this is outside of the January 6th committee investigation. This week I seen an article, and I didn't read it in depth, but I just scratched the surface. that Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of the former president, and Steve Mnuchin, the former Treasury Secretary, each receive billion-dollar investments from Saudi Arabia. Now, the reason it jumps out at me is because Saudi Arabia, if you remember, they're the ones that, and I hate to put it in simple terms, but they're the ones that chopped up the reporter from the Washington Post, Mr. Khashoggi. And there was no actions, no sanctions, nothing done against Saudi Arabia for what they did. But after the administration has moved out, and now Jared Kushner and Steve Mnuchin have got their own business entities working in their own favor after they left the government, Jared Kushner received a $2 billion investment from Saudi Arabia. Steve Mnuchin received a $1 billion investment from Saudi Arabia, from the Prince of Saudi Arabia. Now, I bring this up, and the reason it jumped out at me is because, these are some of the things that we tend to look past of how these people use their positions for monetary gain. Case in point, we're still hearing about Hunter Biden's laptop and what he did in Ukraine and what he did in China, and they're trying to put it all according to Joe Biden knew and whether Joe Biden knew. But these are the things that go on in front of our eyes that we don't really pay attention to now. I'm trying to figure out, and this is just me. I'm looking at the ethics of it. Ethically, how ethical is it that you make a $2 billion or you receive a $2 billion investment from a country that you had communications with while you were in and representing the United States of America for your monetary gain after the fact? As the Treasury Secretary and as an advisor to the President of the United States, I just ask these questions because it seems hypocritical to me when we hear these people talking about what you can do as a normal everyday citizen and what the people in politics are able to do before, during, and after their administration. Just something I'm bringing up, just something I'm asking. I didn't read in depth in it. I'm sure more will come out. But it's just like the other things that are going on. Lady Michelle, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate the support. It's like these other things that are going on that we're seeing coming out now, where there's these text messages going back and forth during the insurrection, leading up to the insurrection, of where they were saying that they didn't have enough to overturn the election. And these were senators and representatives talking about, trying to support Donald Trump and showing that there was voter fraud, and then they couldn't prove it, couldn't find this, couldn't find that. But all this email just shows you that there was workings behind the scenes to try to take away the will of the people in this country by changing the outcome of an election for a made up conspiracy theory that there was rampant voter fraud. Now, Mark Meadows, who was the chief of staff, he's been taken out of the rolls in North Carolina because he voted twice. That's voter fraud. And he was part of the administration. So there's a lot of these things coming out that we're looking at that a lot of people don't see. I read up on them so you don't have to. So if you want to, just continue to tune in and speak on the show, and we'll give you all the information. And I know the politics gets old, but we really need to pay attention to some of these things that are going on, because we got an election coming up in this year, midterm elections, and then next year we got the presidential election coming up again. I don't know about you, but I'm going to speak for myself when I say this. Not paying attention to what's going on in politics at this time in our lives. You're overlooking a lot of things, and you're not paying attention to something that can, let me just say this, that can affect you, and not only you directly, but everything about you, to include your children, your education, what's being taught, how things are being done, what finances are being given. All these things that the legislation is done through politics, we need to really pay attention to. So that's why I bring these things up, just to let you know. Now, here's something that I'm gonna change a little bit from the politics to something else. Because I don't know if we just didn't see it, if we become immune to it, or it's not as important because of who and where the person comes from. And I'm talking about 26-year-old Patrick, and I want to pronounce his name back, Patrick Lyoya. Lyoya. Patrick Lyoya. Russell Jenkins, good morning, bro. Good morning. Appreciate the support. Patrick Lyoya, 26-year-old, here with his family, escaped the war going on in the Congo to come here for a better life. This young man was shot in the head this week by a police officer. I'm sorry, April 4th, by a police officer. And he was pulled over for a traffic violation, supposedly traffic violation. Struggled with the police officer. Police officer tried to tase him. Led to other things. Police officer on top of him finally got him down on the ground, pulled out his gun, shot him in the head. Now, the reason I ask is, have we gotten immune to this is because it seems to me, and this is just my observation, seems to me after the George Floyd incident, the George Floyd murder, we become immune to seeing these things, or, and let me say immune, and the media coverage is not as intense as it was at that time. Patrick Lyoya, his life was just as important as, and people may get mad when I say George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Trayvon Martin, and so on and so on and so on. But I haven't really seen any coverage on this. I haven't really seen anybody talking about it. I haven't seen everything all over social media. I went back and looked and tried to look for things, and I don't see anything. And I'm thinking, it's just me, I'm thinking that this may be because this man, being from the Congo, is not looked at as a Black American. Maybe that's why, don't at me. I'm just asking this question. I'm asking the question now. Is his life not important because he's not an American citizen, or what are we doing? Because we can't say Black Lives Matter in one sense and disregard Patrick Lyoya and his family's importance to who he is to them. I'm just asking the question, y'all. Don't take this the wrong way. I just need to know. And I understand the fact George Floyd was on the ground, knee in his neck. Good morning, Josh Boyd. Appreciate the support. Happy birthday, bro. Happy birthday. I understand that we seen everything on video. Knee on his neck. We don't really need to rehash George Floyd. The big protests, all the protests around the United States of America and every city you can think about. But nothing about Patrick Lyoya. Now, maybe it's because he was trying to escape from the police officer. He struggled with the police officer. But is that a death sentence? See, we always talk about, your due justice in the court system, in the judicial system. But if you watch the video, thank you, Russell Jenkins, for letting me know you watched that video. Hard to watch. Let's be real about it. Hard to watch when you see a guy on his stomach, and the police officer takes his gun, shoots him in the head. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're from. I don't care how you feel about who, what, when, where, or why. We have the tendency to overlook certain things and try to concentrate on other things, which is normal. Don't get me wrong, it's normal. But we can't say Black Lives Matter if we're not talking about Patrick Lyoya at the same time. We're still on the Ukraine war, Ukraine-Russia. Still seeing posts about that and everything. But we seen a man killed in the streets by a police officer, and I ain't seen nothing. Just me. Just an observation. Just putting it out there. OT, good morning, my brother. Good morning. Appreciate the support. Just putting it out there. There's still an investigation going on, trying to figure out everything going on. But the video, now, here's the other part. The video was from the passenger in the car. The police worn body cam shut off right before he pulled the trigger. I don't make this up. This is what I'm just saying. The body cam camera on his person shut off right before he pulled the trigger. So the only video you see is the video recorded from the passenger that was with Mr. Patrick. Pay attention. Pay attention. Pay attention. That's all I'm saying. Pay attention. Because as you've heard me report on here, and I've talked about these things, and we see these things, and don't get me wrong, we can go into the gentleman, and I'm gonna call him a gentleman, the gentleman who shot all the people on the train in New York. We can talk about that if you want to. I mean, you know, it was obvious what he did. He went on the train, he set off a bomb, he started shooting people. These are things that happen all the time. The difference this time was it was a black man that did it. Not that we don't see this, but it's not something that we see all the time. And it's not that I'm not reporting it because it was a black man that did it. No, it has nothing to do with that. He was captured within the next day or within the day. He'll face sentencing. Hopefully the people that were injured will be, you know, recover the trauma, everything that went on in New York. But this is going to be handled in the court of law because he was arrested and not killed. See, when you arrest somebody, they have to face the charges. When you kill somebody, it's your word, their word, and the truth somewhere in the middle. That's where, for me, the dichotomy changes as far as Mr. Ayoya, how you pronounce it now? I want to get it right. Layoya is not going to have his day in court, no matter what the situation was. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not trying to minimize what happened in New York because it's a tragedy. And you can call it, as people want to call it now, a terrorist attack. He caused terror on the subway. There's going to be a lot of people that won't ride the subway no more because of what happened that day. They'll be looking around, paying attention to what's going on and everything like that. These are the things that are after effects. But I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this just like this. It's amazing how we can claim that this one man, or we can state that this one man in a train, subway station, train car, what he did on this week, the shooting, the bomb, the smoke bombs, all that he did, the videos leading up to it and everything. We can label that quick that it was an act of terror. But they still will not put that label on what happened on January 6th. Just me. Just me. I don't know if it's because of the amount of people that were doing the act. One compared to many, plethora, a whole lot. But we can label what he did in that train as a terror attack. But what happened at the Capitol, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to label that as being a terrorist act. We just want to call them insurrectionists because a lot of people don't know what an insurrection is or what insurrection stands for. But we can label it on certain folk, but then on other folk, we don't call it a terror attack. Let that marinate. Let that marinate in your mind juices for a little bit. That's where the differences come in. This week also, staying on politics for a little bit. The Republican National Committee voted Thursday to withdraw from the commission responsible for organizing presidential debates. Taking a line from former President Donald Trump, who has repeatedly leveled accusations of anti-Republican bias against the group. The unanimous vote by the Republican National Committee effectively bars its presidential nominees from participating in events organized by the Commission on Presidential Debates, which has run such debates since 1988. In a statement released shortly after the vote, RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel said that the GOP would find newer, better debate platforms to ensure the future nominees are not forced to go through the biased Commission on Presidential Debates in order to make their case to the American people. Now, mind you, this debate committee was formed in 1987. The first debate started in 1988. We're in 2022. And now the Republican Party doesn't want to do debates no more. We have grown accustomed to when elections come up, there being a debate for who's going to become the president at the time. Whoever the nominee, all the nominees for the Democratic Party, all the nominees for the Republican Party, they debating. And when you get it down to one, then you had a debate with those two. This is, to me, this is just me. This is just me. I'm going to put it in this context for some of y'all that don't understand. I'm going to break it down like this. This, to me, by pulling the Republican Party out of the debates, not having them participate in debates, and they're going to do their own thing, however they're going to do it or whatever, this is like saying we're going to have a Final Four. We're going to have the field of 64, the playing game, and everything. But when we get to the Final Four, the final two teams standing, we're not going to play a game. We're not going to play a game. We're not going to give you opportunity to choose or to even think who you think may win. And by doing that, we're just going to let you, the resume all leading up to that point, doesn't matter. How they played all year, don't matter. Now, use a sports term because a lot of people know, come on, everybody know what this 64, field of 64, NCAA basketball tournament. But you come down to the Final Four. Two play each other to get to the final championship game. But we're removing a staple out of politics that has gone on since 1988 because one person, the former president, didn't like it. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say the reason he didn't like it because he couldn't handle it, because he was not able to articulate. He couldn't articulate clearly and concisely the points that he was trying to make. Because if you ever go back and watch it, and I'm going to bring this up, and y'all just listen to what I'm saying here. If you ever go back and watch the debates that Donald Trump's been involved in, leading up to him becoming president, none of the things he talked about were ever put into legislation while he was in office. And if they did start it, it never finished. Case in point, the wall. Case in point, all the other things that he talked about that never got through. And there was never an agenda. And, that health care they talked about, the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, they was going to improve, get rid of, and get their own thing. Where is it? So by not doing these debates, you're not stuck. You're not stuck by saying that you're going to do this and then not being held accountable if you don't do it. Russell Jenkins, they don't want to do nothing that makes them look bad. Exactly. James Battle, Republicans won every debate held on Fox and hosted by Tucker Carlson. Well, wherever they want to hold them. The thing is this, and I read something about that, about how they want to do the debates and all this kind of stuff, but this is where we talk about the norms. And this is just, let me get myself together because I'm this. Hold on. Let me get myself together because where I'm getting good when I start stuttering. These are the things that we see where we see a political party say that they don't want to partake in this, or this. They're choosing what they want to partake in, right? But this is the same political party that chooses to try to change the norms of what's going on right now. But as soon as something is not going their way, the first thing they want to bring up is the forefathers. The forefathers' intent. The forefathers meant this. This is the party that continually goes back to the Constitution and the amendments and all the things you can think of as a cover for what they want to do. But in this instance, they don't want to debate. Why? Because they don't want to look bad. As Russell Jenkins said, they don't want to look bad. And then they want to go to Fox News because Fox News trumpets their image, trumpets what their policies they say they're going to do that don't happen. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand, and I want people to understand it. I understand that Democrats do the same thing, but at the same time, we're talking about a whole political party. We're talking about individual people here and there. This is a whole political party that is against doing a debate against another political party for you to be able to see and for you to be able to understand where they stand. Because here's the other part. You may sit down and watch a debate, and you may be a staunch Republican or a staunch Democrat. And there may be something that happens in that debate that makes you change your mind about, I was looking at the Republicans, but I think I might go Democrat. Or I was looking at the Democrats. I may have to go Republicans. What they telling me right now is not going to benefit me. It's not going to work for me and my family. That's what they're trying to avoid. Because, one of the things they always bring up about immigration, that most of the people that immigrate to this country will become Democrat. And that's what they're concerned about. So if they don't put themselves on a platform to be seen in that manner, then you can only go by what they tell you. And the bottom line is, and I'm going to get into this right now, the bottom line is they can tell you what you want, what they want to tell you, and expect you to take it as truth. Case in point, Herschel Walker. Yeah, I'm going here today. Herschel Walker. Everybody who don't know Herschel Walker or does know Herschel Walker's running for Senate in Georgia. He's running against Raphael Warnock. Herschel Walker was a football player at one time. He went to the USFL. He's good friends with Donald Trump. That's why Donald Trump is, promoting him and endorsing him and all these kind of things. But Herschel Walker has a history, and I'm not going to say fabricating the truth. He lied. He got a history of lying. He said he was a valedictorian of his high school. When he graduated, they didn't even have a valedictorian at the time. But this is what he said. He was a valedictorian of his high school. They didn't have it at that time. They went back, checked records. There was no valedictorian during that time period at the high school he went to. He also said he graduated college. He got this degree, that degree. He never graduated from college at the University of Georgia. He played football there, but he never graduated. I'm trying to figure out, and y'all, I'm gonna digress for a minute, but I always have to pause and ask this question. Now we all, I don't act like I'm the only one, but we all have embellished on the truth every once in a while. And when I say embellish, I mean you might add a little something here, add a little, it's like if you got a steak, you may add a little seasoning on it to make it taste a little better. So what you do, you add a little seasoning in the story you're telling to embellish it a little bit of what actually happened to make it more sensational. I call it sensationalism of the truth. That's all you're doing. It ain't hurting nobody. It ain't hurting nobody. But I'm trying to figure out when people get up here and they're running for political office or they're in the limelight and they're trying to be somebody or they're in the public eye or anything like that. What causes these people to lie, knowing that people are going to do their research? I've just never understood that because, somebody will call you out. You say something, you said you steal something. Somebody will call you out jokingly and be like, you're right. I lied. I ain't going to lie, bro. I ain't going to lie. You right. You was there. You seen it. But see, that's not hurting nobody. Jokingly, it's not hurting anybody. But when you start talking about what you did, what you didn't do, or you got these accolades that you never had, and people are accepting of the lies that you tell, that's where my problem comes in. Because when I seen this about Herschel Walker, and I'm going to read something else it says, the latest reporting comes, and then I got a transition on this. The latest report comes via the Daily Beast, which investigated claims that Herschel Walker has made about his experience in the private sector, which serves as the primary record on which voters can judge his abilities since he has no experience in government. According to the investigation, Walker has made false remarks relating to running the largest minority-owned food company in the United States. He also said he owns multiple chicken plants in another state and starting and owning a upholstery business, which was also apparently at one point, in his telling, the country's largest minority-owned apparel company. Among other things, the upholstery business seemingly doesn't exist, and Walker's food company isn't even the largest Black-owned food company in his own state. He's got unpaid loans. See, he's taking pages from his supporter, his endorser, Donald Trump. He said he's graduating in the top 1% of his class from the University of Georgia. Turns out he never graduated at all, since he dropped out to play professional football. And his academic performance before that was nowhere close to the top of his class. In 2020, he peddled what he claimed was an FDA-approved aerosol which will kill any COVID on your body. No such treatment ever existed. And people are backing Herschel Walker, even though I'm sitting here reading it to you. And if I can find it this easily, that means everybody out there who is a supporter of his can read the same information that I'm reading to you. But let me show you something here. Watch where I'm going. We have people out here that support Herschel Walker and all these lies that he told, and that, showing that he's not qualified, or any of the things you want to think about as far as politics, as far as his education, any of that. I'm not saying he's not a good businessman. Numbers speak for themselves. I'm not saying that, he may have a food company, but it's not the largest in the United States of America. That's that embellishment that I talk about. But here's my thing, and this is what doesn't sit well with my soul. We see a person like Herschel Walker, an African-American male, on the Republican side that they embrace with no problem. With no matter what lies he tells, as long as he's a part of that party, they're okay with it. But I want you to think of a couple weeks back when we had the most qualified nominee in the history of the Supreme Court sitting in the Senate in front of the Judicial Committee, being questioned not only about her qualifications, but about her decisions that she made from her qualifications as being a judge. And they ran her across the coals because, number one, she's not a part of their quote unquote political party. Number two, you tend, and I'm going to say this, people tend to not like people who are more educated than them and have had more success than them, that they deem that look less than who they are. Just an observation. But they allow this man to lie and then back up the lies that he's telling, because he's a part of their political party, and what they're trying to do is win Georgia to change the landscape of how the Senate sits at 50-50. That's all this is about. When Donald Trump said, I can go in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and get away with it, what do you think he was talking about? He said, I can run as a Republican and win the nomination. Didn't he do that? Because a lot of people don't remember Donald Trump was a staunch Democrat until he ran to become president. So when I see these things about Herschel Walker, I'm not going to call him out his name. Those names people be using, the Uncle Toms and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to call him out his name. What I am going to call him, and what I'm going to call the Republican Party that's supporting him, are hypocrites. Because you can't emphasize the fact of education, knowledge, and knowing what you need to know in order to hold positions in this United States of America if you're not going to be consistent across the board. Herschel Walker, what he's doing right now is no different than what, and I can't remember his first name, but if everybody remembers the Department of Homeland Security person that was in charge, or the FEMA person that was in charge when New Orleans got flooded, George Bush II, his name was Brown. He called him Brownie. He said he was the FEMA director of FEMA. And then they found out he wasn't even qualified to be the director of McDonald's. Now, I may be exaggerating a little bit, but y'all get the story. Y'all understand. So I'm trying to figure out how these people get in, because I know many of us do hiring. Many of us look at resumes that come across our desk, and many of us can tell when we get from the resume to the interview that what's on that resume ain't got nothing to do with the person in that interview. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, but we got people running for political office now who tend to inflate their qualifications in order to get in a seat, all about power. This is all about power. This has nothing to do with the political landscape of legislation or any of that kind. This is about the Republicans trying to regain power. That's it. And if we look at it through clear lenses, they will do it, in the infamous words of Malcolm X, by any means necessary. Deborah Harris, good morning. Appreciate support. April Reed, good morning, sis. Appreciate the support. But that's where we are. That's where we are in politics. We know people lie when it gets to politics as far as what they're going to do, kissing babies, shaking hands, all that. We know that. But when you blatantly come out talking about education you have never achieved, saying that you have this and you don't, that's a whole different story. It's a whole different level. But I'm going to leave him alone. I'm going to leave it alone. Pro-life. You know, all the people running around talking about pro-life this, pro-life that, and everything. And this is probably, you know, it's Easter Sunday tomorrow. Resurrection Sunday. But we talk about pro-life, and this week, a man sentenced to death in South Carolina has chosen to be executed by firing squad. Remember, I reported not too long ago that certain states took up where you can have a choice of being electrocuted, lethal injection, or firing squad. Well, here we are. We're about to have the first person in the United States of America killed by firing squad in like ever. And this is in South Carolina. His name is Richard Bernard Moore. He would be the first person executed in South Carolina in more than a decade as the state has struggled to procure the drugs required to perform lethal injection. Moore was sentenced for the 1999 murder of a convenience store clerk, and he's set to be executed on April 29th. In a court filing Friday, Moore chose to die by firing squad, but added in a statement he will not lose hope in two pending court challenges to the constitutionality of the state's death penalty methods. This is what he said. I believe this election is forcing me to choose between two unconstitutional methods of execution, and I do not intend to waive any challenges to electrocution or firing squad by making an election, he said in a statement. It also says he did not have the option of choosing lethal injection, as South Carolina does not have the necessary drugs, according to the filing. The state has not been in possession of a usable dose of lethal injection drugs since 2013. 4 states, Oklahoma, Mississippi, and Utah, and South Carolina, are allowing executions by firing squad. Firing squad, y'all. Think about that. Last month, the South Carolina Department of Corrections announced it can now perform executions by firing squad after it renovated its capital punishment facility, allowing execution in the state to resume. The Department of Correction detailed its new protocols in a news release, noting the facility had installed a metal chair for the person being executed and bullet-resistant glass in the witness room. During the execution, 3 firing squad members will stand in an opening in the death chamber's wall, facing the person being executed, the Corrections Department explained in the release. Once escorted into the chamber, the inmate will have the opportunity to make a final statement before being strapped to the chair and having a hood placed over their head, according to the protocol. After a small aim point is placed over the person's heart, the firing squad, which will not be visible to the witnesses, will commence the firing. The Department of Corrections says the firing squad members, watch this now, the firing squad members will be volunteer Department of Corrections employees who must meet certain qualifications. After reading this and after hearing this, if this does not disturb you and cause you to look at where people want to talk pro-life in a different way, reevaluate. Because everybody thinks pro-life is just centered on the abortion issue. This is pro-life. Firing squad. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that people need to be sentenced for the crimes they commit. I understand the judicial system. I understand all that. But firing squad, lethal injection, electrocution, what are we doing? What are we doing in this country? Now, people say, well, you know, because I talked about it not too long ago, there were 81 people beheaded over there in Saudi Arabia. We're not Saudi Arabia. We're not Saudi Arabia. And you can't continue to have people walking around here talking about their religious beliefs and everything, and then you're allowing this kind of stuff to go on, no matter what the crime may have been. I understand that, eye for an eye and all that kind of stuff. I get that. But electrocution, lethal injection, firing squad, what are we doing? When I say we, I mean we as a collective unit, as a collective unit in the United States of America. Firing squad. With a point right above the heart for them to shoot at. While he has a hood on, strapped down in a chair. I'm not going to say it's barbaric. It's damn sure close. This is why I continue to say, pay attention to the people you're voting to put in these offices. Not only at the highest levels, but at the local levels, each state level. Let me transition off that because I'm a little disturbed on that. A federal judge said on Wednesday Tesla Incorporated was liable to a black elevator operator who said the electric car company ignored racial abuse at the factory where he worked, but reduced a nearly $137 million jury award to $15 million. Let me just what's the word? Simplify. I couldn't get it out. This individual, Owen Diaz, worked at Tesla. He worked at the plant for 9 months from 2015 and 2016, in between 2015 and 2016. He said that other employees used racial slurs when speaking to him and scrawled swastikas and slurs, including the N-word, on bathroom walls. He also said one supervisor drew a racist caricature near his workstation. In a 43-page decision, Judge Orrick said the evidence amply supported the jury's finding Tesla liable for the profound emotional harm that Mr. Diaz suffered and the often inadequate disciplinary steps the company took. But the judge reduced Diaz's compensatory damages to $1.5 million from the excessive $6.9 million that the jury awarded, and lowered punitive damages to $13.5 million from the unconstitutionally large $130 million jury award. So he went from $137 million down to $15 million. Now, $15 million is still a lot of money. Let's just be real here. But a jury of his peers found him that he should be able to receive $137 million for punitive damages and everything that went on in this case. A jury of his peers. And then the judge overruled it, saying, nah, we only going to give you $15 million. We're not going to give you that whole 137 that the jury said. I'm going to overrule it. It's a little extreme. Here's the thing. Who and why do people get to decide to what level, either monetary or personal, what level of disrespect I've received by being discriminated against, by being racially biased against, by any of the things that they said was done to him at Tesla? Who gets to decide that? Because no matter what the monetary value is that he gets, it's still not going to take away the fact of how he had made him feel when they said what they said. Now, the jury obviously sided with him because they seen the disrespect in the case that was presented to them. $137 million? Too much? I can't say that because I'm not Mr. Diaz. But the judge feels it was too much, so he minimized it. But Tesla's the same company, because they still have other lawsuits in there as well as his for the same type thing. But Tesla's the same company that pays pennies on the dollar for taxes if they pay any at all. What are we doing? 15 million, 137 million. He's appealing. Oh, he's going to appeal it. For sure. He's going to appeal it. We'll see what comes out of that. Fraud. Let's talk about fraud. I got 2 instances about fraud. The NAACP called on Attorney General Merrick Garland to investigate years of allegations of widespread welfare fraud and misspending in Mississippi, totaling over, watch the number now, $94 million. Misappropriation, welfare fraud, $94 million. And here's the kicker. None of the fraud of this $94 million was at this level. It was all at this level. You know, when people get out here and they talking about food stamps, welfare, anything included with welfare, SNAP program, all the different programs under SNAP, under welfare program and everything. This went on from 2017 through 2019. $94 million at this level was taken and misappropriated. Brett Favre, football player that lives in Mississippi. He was charged in this. He was given $1.1 million in welfare funds for giving speeches that he never gave. They paid him $1.1 million from this welfare fund for speeches that he never gave. Now he's in the process of paying the money back, but he still should be held accountable because he's going to say, I didn't know where the money was coming from. That's how they parted it. You know, he hadn't been charged, but he has started repaying the funds. Now this is what the questionable funds that they used, what they used it on. $5 million for a lease agreement for a multi-purpose wellness center that would later become a volleyball stadium. $635,000 for a virtual reality lab that included individuals who weren't identified as needy. And $44,000 to retired professional football players for football camps that focused on student athletes and did not address helping at-risk youth. $94 million taken out of the hands and out of the pockets of those in Mississippi who has the highest poverty rate in the United States of America, taken out of their hands, taken out of their pockets, so they stay in poverty while the people up here are using this money for whatever they want to use it for. And the Justice Department, this was identified 2 years ago when William Barr was the DOJ, and they chose to do nothing with it. Now the NAACP is going to Merrick Garland, who's the DOJ now, to say, hey, your predecessor didn't do nothing. What you going to do? This is something that needs to be looked at. $94 million taken out of a fund that's supposed to help people. And this is what bothers me about this, is that we always hear people, the politicians, talk about these programs and how people are abusing the programs at this level. You know, the little people, the ones that need it. They always talk about they are the ones abusing it. But 94, ain't nobody at this level. Let's just be honest here. Ain't nobody at this level ever been able to get away with taking $94 million from a fund. At this level, you be lucky if you're able to take $94 away from something that you're not supposed to have and them not investigate you. But $94 million at this level, come on, y'all. Work with me now. Work with me. But see, we beat up, society tends to beat up those in need, saying they're taking advantage of the system. But this $94 million in one state of Mississippi, the highest poverty rate in the United States of America beside Kentucky. But I got another one for you. Black Lives Matter's hands ain't clean either. All y'all that donated for Black Lives Matter, the foundation, and what they were doing, everything, these people, 3 of them, decided to go buy a $5.8 million Southern California home with donated funds, and now they're vowing to increase the transparency. It's a 6,500 square foot Studio City compound, which boasts 7 bedrooms and 7 bathrooms, a soundstage, music studio, pool, and parking for more than 20 cars. It was secretly bought by a shell company in October of 2020, connected to Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation. The embattled organization used part of its $90 million donation windfall to purchase the lavish digs, according to the explosive report. Property records obtained by the Post confirmed that the SoCal mansion was purchased by Diane Pascal, a local real estate developer with links to the Black Lives Matter movement, in a deal closed October 27, 2020. So between the $94 million they taken from people that in need in Mississippi, and then going out here out of a $90 million surplus that you have for Black Lives Matter and their organization, you're taking $6 million to buy a home in California from the donated funds to Black Lives Matter movement. It's a shame. It's a shame when people have these organizations and the organizations are labeled and identified to be something worthwhile, something that's going to move the agenda forward, something that's going to help secure us and make us feel more comfortable in what's going on around us in this United States of America. And then these people that are in charge of the organization see the money and they take the money and they use it for their own personal things. This is where people get a bad taste in the mouth. This is why people don't want to donate. That's why when people say Black Lives Matter and everything like this, now there's been some controversies here and there. Black lives still matter. But the people running Black Lives Matter, the organization, need to reevaluate how they're doing things. What's going on over there? What is really going on over there? Where 3 of the people go out here and buy a $6 million home for what? And they saying it was for, BLM has always held the tradition sacred, partnering with artists of every kind since our founding. It continued. That's why Creators House is what they called it, was purchased to provide a space for Black folks to share their gifts with the world and hone their craft as they see fit, under the conditions that work best for them and outside systems of oppression in creative industries, the group said. It also defended where some of its funding has been spent, explaining that it has recently provided $3 million in direct support to families struggling to navigate the impacts of COVID. And then it says we have granted out over $25 million to Black-led frontline orgs around the world. So they put this on there at the end to try to justify the $6 million that they spent on this home. Now, I'm not saying it was nefarious activity going on or anything like that, but you buy a house for $6 million for what? There's many warehouses and things like that you could have bought and invested the money into this warehouse to rebuild what kind of center you want to build. But you bought a home. You bought a home. Not a safe house, not anything. You bought a home. And then nobody knew anything about the home until this came up that they were investigating where this money went. I'm not saying they're guilty, but I ain't saying they're innocent either. I'm just trying to figure out $6 million for a home using Black Lives Matter donations. What are we doing? What are we doing? They're no different than the people in Mississippi with the $94 million as far as I'm concerned. They're taking away from the people that need it for their own financial gain. Just me. Call it what you want to call it. But Easter traditions. Easter traditions. Let's talk about Easter. Tomorrow is Easter. Resurrection Sunday. You remember back in the day when you was a kid, you had on that, maybe I'm just talking about me, that old powder blue leisure suit. Little girls had on a little dress with them, all y'all had them old white patent leather shoes. They were too tight. But you were excited because for the last 2-3 weeks leading up to Resurrection Sunday on Sunday morning, you was practicing your Easter speech. You didn't do a chest run with the uniform on, with your clothes on, and everything, but you did your Easter speech, and your mother sat there, or your father sat there, or the family sat there as a whole, and everybody did their speech. And if you forgot something, they give you a word, and then you pick it up from there and keep going. You remember those days back in the day, the Easter traditions of going to church on Sunday morning on Easter, going up there and doing your Easter speech. What happened? What happened? Because I look back at it now, and just a thought, I look back at it now, and I laugh and I smile about it because, at that time, as much as you didn't want to do it, most of us didn't want to do it. You had a sense of accomplishment after you got it done, after you did it. You got up there, and if nobody needed to help you get through your speech, you felt like you was walking on top of the world on that day, Easter Sunday. And you understood what Easter Sunday was all about. You understood what, Resurrection Sunday meant. You understood everything about Jesus rising on that day. But somewhere along the lines, and I don't know if it's the generations that have passed, us as parents who don't instill that in our children, the churches may not do it as much as they used to. I don't know where it got lost at. But that's one of those traditions that I think about every time Easter comes around. And it just brings up those memories. And as I come on here on Saturdays and I talk about everything going on in the world, and then to be able to have that thought about what it used to be and how I used to want to put on, didn't want to put on that Easter suit and get up there and tell them speeches. Those were the simpler days of our lives. Terrence Collins, I wish my suit was powder blue. Mine was a shade of orange and definitely not my color. Still mad. Hey, we was clean though. That's the key. We was clean. If you took you out your hair cut the day before, if you went up to the church door, everybody remember you get up to the church door and something, you got a little sleep in your eye that you didn't get out there. Somebody, one of the older women in the church, they weren't older, they were older than us, but one of them would take a little spit, wipe your eye and everything. Now you sitting in church, smell like spit all day. But those are the things that when Easter Sunday comes around, the traditions of Easter, of what we used to do when we were young, those memories, where now we see Easter as just a day. We recognize it, don't get me wrong, we recognize it for what it is and what it stands for and everything, but the traditions of what Easter was all about, dyeing the eggs and the Easter egg hunts and having the jelly beans and everybody having at one time, everybody got their own individual basket. Then when you got older, it was just one big basket. You remember them days? Everybody had their own individual basket at one time. Then when you got to be about 14, 15, them individual baskets just became one big basket for everybody. You remember that? The little, all the candy in there and the peanut butter eggs and all the traditions that we had. And we remember back then when life was much simpler. But still understanding the reason that we celebrated Easter. And I think the traditions have gone to the wayside. The traditions have gone to the wayside because a lot of us have lost the focus of what it's all about. If you don't do anything this weekend, reflect on that. Get back to that. Resurrection Sunday. Understand what God put his only son here on earth to do for us. What it's all about. I laugh about the suits and everything, but there was a purpose for those suits. There was a purpose for those white patent leather shoes. There's a purpose for those Easter speeches that we all had to do at one time. Where do we lose that at? I often ask many questions on here about where we lost it. How can we get it back? Can we? Just never know. Just never know. Let's go and get into this. Mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. It's the year 2022. Taking it moment by moment. 1,440 moments in a day. You have 1,440 minutes in a day. Let's think those moments. Let's enjoy each and every moment for what it has to offer. And today's mind, body, and soul is one simple word. One simple word. Believe. Believe. You know, there's a song by Charlie Wilson that I play at certain times when I'm going through. It's called I Believe. And in the song, what he's doing is he's talking to God. Because everybody don't know the story about Charlie Wilson. Charlie Wilson was famous back with the Gap Band, everything like that. But then he fell on hard times, drugs and cancer. He dealt with cancer, but he went through a lot of things during his struggle. But he never gave up believing. And in this song, he talks about, things that he's gone through, things that, he didn't know which way to go and everything, but he never lost his belief. And he said, I believe in you. If you get a chance, go listen to the song. Pull up on YouTube. It's on there. I Believe by Charlie Wilson. And I bring it up today because in this season of Easter, sometimes our belief dwindles. And I'm not only talking about our belief in God, but I'm talking about our belief in life and everything around us and what's going on with us. See, sometimes we lose the belief and tend not to believe the fact of what we are capable of doing, what we're capable of getting past, how we're capable of persevering and making it through each and every day. And that belief comes into play because sometimes we don't understand or we choose not to recognize only in certain instances that God is always in control no matter what we're going through and no matter what's going on. But when we get to talking about believing in ourselves, believing in God, believing in the people that are around us, believing in what we want to happen in our lives will happen, sometimes we lose focus of that. And the reason we lose focus of that is because we lose focus of, and y'all have heard me say this before, we lose focus of the higher power. I would charge each and every one of you out there today, leading into Easter Sunday, start believing again. And if you already believe, and if you already believe a little harder. Dig a little deeper in your belief of what he's capable of, because he didn't bring you this far to only bring you this far. What you have going on in your life, what you've accomplished in your life, what you tend to still not know, that you've only scratched the surface of who you are to become, has to be believed by you. Once you believe it, once you understand it, and once you start walking in it, nobody else will be able to minimize what you're all about. See, sometimes our belief factor dwindles because of things we've gone through or the struggles that we have, the sicknesses that we go through. But understand this. And I'll say this. When you go through a sickness, when you go through a trial and tribulation, when you go through a struggle and you make it to the other side, your belief and you're believing that you'll make it through, that God has you in his hands, that no matter what goes on in his life, God is in control. When we get to the other side, sometimes we tend to forget about that. Because while we're in it, our belief is so implanted in who we are and what we know the goodness of God is. But when we get on that other side of that struggle, everything we believe back here, we leave back there. You got to keep that with you and know that you didn't make it through by yourself. His belief in you, as well as your belief in him, has allowed you to see another day. And what we have to do is believe in ourselves to know that even though we are capable of doing all sorts of things in this life, without the belief in God, you have only scratched the surface of what you can accomplish. Go listen to the song by Charlie Wilson, I Believe. It'll give you a different perspective. Could bring some tears to your eyes, because I know when I listen to it, it touches my soul. Touches my soul, puts me in a different perspective to understand and appreciate. Let me just say this, to understand and appreciate anything and everything that has happened to me in my life. You get a different perspective of all your struggles have made you who you are. All your accomplishments have made you who you are. But none of those things are possible. None of those things are possible without believing in the man upstairs and knowing that he guides your steps every day, that he's going to be with you every day. But all you have to do is believe. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Look, it's Easter. What's the Easter Eve they call it? Easter Eve, the day before. It's Easter Eve. You know, take into consideration what I said this morning about Easter, believing, the traditions, all the things we tend to let go by the wayside sometimes, because one thing we know, everything that has gone on in our lives is still a part of who we are, the right, the wrong, and the indifferent. But you have to know how to take those things, all inclusive, and make you better than you were yesterday. Because what happened to you last week is still a part of you today. And you don't dwell on it. You refer to it, but don't dwell on it. Know what happened. Know how you made it through. Know who helped you make it through. And believe if he made it, if he believe, let me just say it this way. If you believe that God has made it, helped you make it through that, then you need to continue to believe that he'll help you make it through anything going forward. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I love y'all. Love yourself. Love one another. Keep your head up. And most definitely, keep your faith in God. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I'm out. I'll see y'all next week. Peace.